Can you gegenpress in non-league? Well, what is gegenpressing? For the most part, when people refer to gegenpressing, they should really be talking about what it's broken down into, and that is counterpressing. But when people talk about gegenpressing, that's not really what they talk about. And gegenpressing's really become fashionable. Since Jurgen Klopp came to the Premier League and Pep Guardiola brought his own brand of very quick counter-pressing football, and obviously since the arrival of Ralph Rangnick at Manchester United, the phrase has really become popular in all levels of football. People are talking about it, and its application in the Premier League is one thing, but can it be applied all the way down leagues, and can it actually be applied in non-league? Well, you have to talk about what it is, and for me there's two types of gegenpressing, and I think people mistake these. Gegenpressing is literally meant to be you're in possession, you lose the ball, and then you counter-press to try and win the ball back. That is actually what gegenpressing is. However, most people will talk about it when your opposition's playing out. Now, that's positional pressing. You might press when you're in a low block and someone makes a mistake and you press out to go and put pressure on them to try and win the ball back or to try and force them into mistake. Gegenpressing kind of seems to have become this thing that lumps in all of that. That's sort of pressing, gegenpressing, all sort of comes under that thing. Well, can you do it at non-league? Yes, you can. Gegenpressing in the way that most people understand it is this new sort of concept, but in reality it's been around forever. Sir Alex Ferguson used to have teams that pressed, but they wouldn't call it pressing, they certainly wouldn't have called it gegenpressing. They would have just been like, don't let him turn, get on his touch, get right on him. And actually, when you watch Sir Alex Ferguson's greatest sides, and if I go back to the treble side was a team that pressed. They used to press all in the opposition half. We used to have an extremely high line. That's why Jaap Stam was so good with the pace he had to recover. But we also used to drop off and have a mid or low block at times as well, particularly in Europe. Pressing and knowing how and when to press is the most important thing about it. You can't just run around like lunatics all over the pitch. It's not sustainable. There has to be coordination, there has to be a plan to it, there has to be a pattern to it, and there has to be an outcome to it. You can't just press every single person that's in possession for every minute of every game. It doesn't work like that. So what's required to become a team that presses or gegenpresses? Well, you have to work out how you're going to gegenpress. You have to work out what is required for you to do that. At Stretford Paddock, we changed our style of play from being quite passive in possession. We'd occasionally fall into a bit of a mid-block and look to break out of that with a counter-attack. Whereas this year, we've decided that we're going to be very proactive, we're going to look to win the ball back high, and we're going to look to apply pressure to the opposition wherever and whenever we can. But again, you need data to that, and you need to know if you're improving at doing that. And that's where we use PlayerData.
PlayerData provides valuable data on the team load that the players are going through in training. So we use that to manage their workload because players are at risk of burning out, or players who need to do a bit more to get back into fitness, maybe after an injury. So PlayerData provides that valuable data to see who needs what in terms of their progression. What we don't have at this level is a sort of average quantified numbers that players produce. So what we can do with PlayerData is we can, after a few games since we've had it, been able to work out an average that this team covers, the average amount of high intensity meters they cover, and the average amounts of sprints they do a game, and also see who's clocking the highest speeds. So with that quantifiable data, then we can compare that to maybe higher level teams and see where we're at. Players are always very keen to see their statistics after a game. It's very good for team spirit and camaraderie to see who covered the most distance, who picked up the highest speed, and who was putting the work in. There's no hiding when it comes to PlayerData. We know exactly who's done what, and it's really good to see the competitiveness of the lads, to see who did the most and who clocked high speed and etc.
And one of the things that I like to use with PlayerData is I like to see not just the overall distance run, although I like that one, but the high intensity distance and the amount of sprints that are covered. That, in conjunction with the playback, tells me exactly what the players are doing and are they doing it at the right times, and more importantly, are they doing it collectively as a unit? Because one person pressing is just one person running after a ball like a puppy in the wind. You have to have a unified press with a purpose. Since we've been using PlayerData, the players are looking at their own data, they're looking at their own metrics, they're talking about how much they ran, how much pressing they did within the games. It's got this competitive edge because you know what players are like. They all want to be the one who ran the most, who sprinted the most, who had the most intense distance, and who was the quickest across the pitch. And using the app that PlayerData have got allows us to do that. As a coach, I like looking at all of those metrics, but again, the one I gravitate to the most is the playback, looking what the position of players was. Did we have +1 in defence at the right time? Were we looking to get numbers into a certain area at one time? And there's a couple of good examples here from a couple of different ways that you can press and you can press effectively. We had a friendly against Ramsbottom United from Step 4, which is 5 leagues above where we play at the moment, and we should have been absolutely smashed. We didn't get smashed. We'd lost, but we had a really competitive game. And there's a couple of instances of us pressing where we managed to recover the ball back that I think would be useful to share with you at the moment. The first one you can see here, the opposition have got a free kick just inside our half, and Stretford Paddock are in a bit of a medium to low block. We use the opposition player's poor pass as a bit of a trigger to start putting him under pressure. And we cross the halfway line and continue putting him under pressure as he's gone back to the defence and the goalkeeper to try and relieve some of the pressure. Because the defensive line has also stepped up all the way up to the halfway line as the opposition look to go long, because we've filled off all the available spaces and all the available passing options, and we've done so quickly with intensity, the only option for him to go is to go long, and because he's gone long and our line has completely stepped up, it's an easy ball for us to collect from our goalkeeper. In this one, you see possession begins with the goalkeeper, and you see this looking to play out from the back. It's very common in football nowadays. They're going to look to shift it from left to right, and you can see no one's steaming out of position here. We're just moving up and putting pressure on. We do this quite often where we will stack over to one side. You can see the fullback's been left here a little bit by our winger, and we're putting pressure periodically across the back line. Now, as you see, the opposition look to switch it to that free man who is in space. Our right winger, now playing on the left here at the moment, puts him under pressure. He puts him under pressure. It's a poor touch. Paddock are able to recover the ball. We knock it back to our defence and we can build again. This is just a couple of ways that you can press at this level. It's not necessarily just a pure Premier League team thing, but if we're talking about true gegenpressing, this is true gegenpressing. When the opposition have recovered possession of the ball, you look to quickly transition into winning the ball back before they manage to get their head up and establish any sort of rhythm of passing. They're panicking, they're playing a couple of quick balls without really any thought to them, and the work rate, intensity of Stretford Paddock's midfield here wins the ball back and starts a counter-attack for us. So to answer your question, can you gegenpress at non-league? You absolutely can. But you have to have players that are fit, you have to have players that have been trained how to do it, you have to have a system and a way of pressing that everybody understands, everybody is on board with. And thanks to PlayerData, we have ways to track and measure not just are we running around and are we pressing, but we can see through the GPS maps, are we doing it as a unit? You get that 2D view so you can make sure everyone's doing it in the right sort of areas. And we can also see that week after week after week, we're getting more sprints, we're getting more intense meters ran, we are getting more distance ran overall. And you can literally see the development from week to week to week that we're doing it more often, more frequently and more successfully. I absolutely love it, and so do the players.